The morning shift at Crestwood Naval Hospital had barely begun when 22-year-old rookie nurse Alina Rahman rushed through the automatic doors, her ID badge still swinging from the hurried jog she'd made across the parking lot, her ponytail half loose, and her heart racing with the determination of someone who could feel their purpose calling louder than the doubts surrounding them. The senior nurses whispered as she passed, "She's too soft, too new, she'll break under pressure," little jabs they'd been throwing at her since day one, their faces permanently carved with the smug expressions of people who enjoyed reminding her she didn't belong. But today, there was no time for their snide comments because the moment Alina stepped into the emergency ward, alarms exploded through the hallway and an urgent voice thundered over the loudspeaker, "Code Blue incoming. High-priority military transport, critical condition." The double doors burst open as medics wheeled in a stretcher carrying a motionless man whose uniform, medals, and insignia identified him instantly: Admiral Lucas Harrington, one of the Navy's most decorated leaders, a man whose reputation alone could freeze a room. His skin was ghostly pale, his breathing shallow, and his pulse fading like a candle in the wind. Doctors scrambled, shouted orders, flipped through charts, but no one noticed the rookie nurse who stepped forward, her eyes razor-sharp and her instincts screaming that something wasn't right. She saw what the others didn't: the Admiral's airway was constricting, his chest barely rising, and the medication he desperately needed was stuck across the room in a locked cabinet no one was retrieving because everyone else was panicking, arguing, or waiting for someone higher-ranking to instruct them. Alina didn't wait. She dashed to the cabinet, entered the emergency override code she'd memorized but never used, grabbed the correct vial, and sprinted back just as the Admiral's vitals crashed to near zero. A senior nurse, Brenda, one of the loudest bullies, grabbed Alina's wrist and hissed, "You don't touch high-risk patients without permission." But Alina tore her hand free, her voice shaking yet fearless as she shouted, "He will die if we wait." She administered the precise dosage, tilted his airway, and performed the technique she had studied over and over at home long after her shifts, too afraid to look incompetent in front of the older nurses who mocked her. The room held its breath. The Admiral jerked, a gasp exploded from his lungs, and suddenly, the monitor began to climb. Weak pulse. Stabilizing rhythm. Oxygen returning. The doctors turned to see who had done it, and froze. The rookie had just saved the Admiral's life in under 20 seconds. The room erupted in orders and movement again, but the tension had changed. Now the doctors followed her lead, asking rapid-fire questions and recalibrating treatment based on the decisions she had already made. The bullies stood silent, their smirks wiped clean, their faces draining of color as they realized the soft little rookie had just performed the action every one of them hesitated to take. The Admiral was rushed to ICU, stabilized but unconscious, and though exhaustion trembled in Alina's limbs, she felt nothing but relief until she stepped into the hallway and heard the bullies whispering again, trying to twist the moment. "She broke protocol, she's going to get written up, she just got lucky." Their words cut deeper than any scalpel, but Alina kept walking, reminding herself that results mattered more than gossip, until a stern military officer approached her with a look that made the entire hallway fall silent. "Nurse Alina Rahman?" he asked. She nodded, expecting reprimand. Instead, he said, "The Admiral asked for you." Shock rippled across the staff. Bullies gaped, jaws dropping. Alina followed the officer into the private recovery suite where Admiral Harrington, barely awake, lifted a trembling hand and motioned for her to come closer. His voice was raspy, but the authority in it could still silence oceans. "You saved me," he whispered. "Bravery under pressure, that's the mark of a leader." He asked her name again, repeating it as if memorizing it. Then he said words she would never forget: "People who try to dim your light do so because they fear how brightly you can shine." Little did Alina know that the next 20 minutes would flip the entire hospital upside down. Because while the bullies were laughing behind her back again near the nurse's station, mocking her, claiming she'd get fired for touching a high-ranking officer without permission, the Admiral, now fully stable, requested a full inquiry into the hesitation of the senior staff, demanded to know why the rookie was the only one who acted fast, and then requested that Alina be assigned directly under his case with full authority to override anyone obstructing patient care. By the time the officer returned to the nurse's station with the Admiral's orders, every bully's face turned chalk white. The same women who mocked Alina daily now watched their own careers crumble in real time. And as the officer read the Admiral's words aloud, praising Alina's courage, condemning their negligence, and placing her at a higher clearance level than all of them, Brenda stepped forward, voice trembling, and whispered the words no one ever expected to hear: "Alina, please, help us keep our jobs." The bullies who had tormented her were now begging for mercy, begging for forgiveness, begging for the rookie nurse they once belittled to save their positions just like she saved the Admiral's life. And as Alina stood there, heart pounding, the entire ward silent and watching her, she realized something powerful: life has a way of flipping the script, and sometimes, all it takes is one act of courage to make every bully finally see the truth. And in that moment, a soft smile touched her lips, not out of arrogance, but strength, as she whispered, "Do better. For your patients, and for yourselves." 20 minutes after the Admiral placed Alina at the top of the clearance list, the entire hospital seemed to operate under a new kind of energy, one fueled by shock, whispered rumors, and a strange mix of awe and fear directed at the rookie nurse who now walked with quiet confidence through the same hallways where she had been mocked just hours before, and as she stepped into the Admiral's private suite to begin his next round of checks, she could feel the shift even more clearly when the naval officers present nodded respectfully to her, creating a moment that felt unreal, as if destiny itself had decided to rewrite her life right in front of everyone's eyes. The Admiral, awake and alert now, greeted her with warm appreciation, his voice steady, strong, and filled with that unmistakable command presence that came only from decades of leading sailors through storms and battles across the world. He asked her to sit, something she'd never seen an Admiral request from anyone, and when she did, he told her the truth behind his condition, that he had been poisoned during a classified overseas mission, that the toxin had nearly shut down his respiratory system, and that the medical hesitation he witnessed upon arrival made him question the reliability of every person in the room, except her. As he spoke, a sudden tremor shook the ground under them, followed by the blaring wail of hospital alarms. Officers quickly rushed in with urgent faces, reporting that the men who attempted to assassinate the Admiral had infiltrated the hospital, disguised as contractors, and were now somewhere on the third floor. Chaos erupted instantly, security scrambled, officers barked orders, and the Admiral, despite his weakened condition, attempted to sit up, but Alina gently but firmly placed a hand on his shoulder, telling him he needed to conserve every ounce of strength for the fight ahead. Though her voice trembled, her resolve did not, and when a blackout suddenly plunged the entire floor into darkness, only emergency red lights flickering like heartbeat pulses along the ceiling, a cold silence settled over the ward, broken only by the Admiral whispering, "Stay close. They're coming for me." Step by slow step, Alina positioned herself between the Admiral's bed and the doorway, her mind racing as she searched for anything she could use to defend him, and the only thing available was a metal four-pole which she gripped with both hands, fear swirling inside her, yet anchored by the courage that had already defied death once today. Footsteps echoed down the corridor, heavy, deliberate, and getting closer and closer until a shadow loomed outside the doorway, but before the intruders could break in, Navy SEALs charged through the hall, tackling the attackers in a swift burst of gunfire, shouts, and controlled chaos. One SEAL shouted, "Protect the nurse. She's the Admiral's priority," and in that instant, Alina realized the magnitude of what she had become, a protector in the crossfire of a mission far bigger than she ever imagined. Minutes later, power returned, the threat was neutralized, and the Admiral was transferred to a secure wing, but before they moved him, he caught Alina's hand with surprising strength and told the SEAL commander, "She moves with me. She's earned that right." The bullies watched, stunned and speechless, as Alina walked beside the Admiral, surrounded by military escort. Far from the timid rookie they once tormented, she now looked like someone carved into the very fabric of resilience. Later that evening, after the chaos settled, a senior naval doctor approached Alina, offering her a direct position on the Admiral's long-term medical team, complete training sponsorship, and accelerated promotion, all honors rarely offered to someone so young. But the part that hit her hardest was when Brenda and the other bullies approached with tearful eyes, voices cracking as they apologized, admitting they had judged her wrong, admitting jealousy, admitting fear, and pleading for forgiveness. And though the memory of their cruel words still lingered, Alina understood something profound in that moment. True strength wasn't about winning or proving someone wrong, it was about lifting others even when they didn't deserve it. She forgave them, not because they earned it, but because she refused to let their past define her future. As the Admiral was wheeled into his secured transport later that night, he saluted Alina, an honor she never believed she would see in her lifetime, and told her, "The world needs more hearts like yours. Never let anyone dim it." And when Alina walked out of that hospital, the stars glimmering above her like 1,000 tiny victories, she felt herself breathing for the first time in years, not as a rookie, not as a victim of bullying, but as someone who had rewritten her destiny with courage, compassion, and unshakable will. She took one final look at the hospital behind her and whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." And for everyone listening to this story right now, remember, strength isn't about power, it's about heart. And if this story moved you even a little, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales that remind us all what courage truly looks like. The sun was just beginning to rise over Crestwood Naval Hospital when Alina stepped outside to breathe the cold morning air, unaware that the greatest twist of her journey was about to unfold like a fate she never asked for but was always destined to face. The world had changed overnight, news outlets were already buzzing, Navy officials were making unannounced visits, and staff had been placed under strict evaluation after Admiral Harrington's formal complaint, but Alina wasn't thinking about any of that. She was thinking about how strange life felt when courage catapulted an ordinary girl into a storm of consequences. As she returned inside, she found the hospital buzzing with more tension than before, officers gathering, senior staff trembling, and the bullies pacing nervously, trying to guess what the Admiral's final decision would be. With every step Alina took, heads turned, this time not with mockery but respect mixed with fear, because everyone knew by now that the rookie nurse they once ignored had become the fulcrum upon which their futures rested. When she reached the Admiral's suite, she expected quiet conversation or medical updates, but instead, she walked into a full assembly, commanding officers, legal advisors, senior doctors, and Nurse Brenda and her clique standing stiff, faces pale, eyes sunken with dread. Admiral Harrington, now sitting upright with surprising strength, motioned for Alina to stand beside him, and when she did, all eyes locked onto her as if the entire hospital had shifted around a new center of gravity. "You all witnessed hesitation," he said, his voice firm, "and hesitation kills. This young nurse," he gestured to Alina, "acted with clarity under pressure where others faltered. But discipline is not about revenge, it is about rebuilding trust." The bullies trembled as he paused, their breaths shallow, waiting for him to ruin their careers. Instead, the Admiral turned to Alina and said, "What do you think should happen to them?" The room froze. The officers stared at the Admiral, then at the young nurse who suddenly held more authority than she ever imagined. The bullies' eyes filled with tears, their arrogance dissolving into desperation as they silently pleaded with her, the same girl they belittled, humiliated, and tried to break. The weight of the moment crashed onto Alina's shoulders. She remembered every insult, every eye roll, every time they made her doubt herself, but she also remembered the Admiral's words about leadership, courage, and rising above pettiness. She took a deep breath, her voice steady but soft, and said, "They don't need punishment. They need training. Real training, the kind that teaches responsibility, not superiority." A stunned silence followed, and even the Admiral blinked in surprise. Brenda broke down, tears pouring, whispering thank you, as if she couldn't believe the mercy she had just received. The officers nodded. The order was written: mandatory retraining, close supervision, and probation. Not career-ending, but life-changing. And the bullies knew it. After the meeting, as the room emptied, Brenda approached Alina trembling, not with fake humility but with genuine regret. "I was wrong about you," she whispered. "You saved that man, and today, you saved us too." For the first time, Alina saw something human in her eyes. Not superiority. Not cruelty. Just a woman who never expected the rookie she mocked to become her teacher. Days passed, the Admiral recovered fully, and under his guidance, a new culture began to grow in the hospital, one built on respect, teamwork, and humility. He pushed Alina into leadership courses, recommended her for a prestigious Navy medical fellowship, and made sure she understood just how rare her courage truly was. And one evening, as the Admiral prepared for discharge, he said to her with a knowing smile, "Heroes don't wait for permission. They act. And because you acted, I'm alive today." Alina stepped out of the room, heart full, knowing she had fought battles most never see, against fear, against injustice, against bullies who once seemed untouchable. But the greatest victory wasn't the praise, wasn't the recognition, it was the fact that the same people who tried to silence her had learned from her instead. As she walked down the hallway, now greeted with nods, respect, and admiration, she felt something she had never felt here before: she belonged. And as she left the hospital that day with the golden evening light shining across her path, she realized that sometimes life doesn't wait for you to feel ready, sometimes, it throws you into the fire so you can discover that you were born to rise above it. And to anyone listening to her story, the message echoed loudly: never let bullies convince you that your light is small. Because when you finally stand your ground, the world sees you differently forever. The dawn light crept through the tall ICU windows as the hospital finally settled after a night of chaos, but for Alina Rahman, sleep was a luxury she had abandoned long ago. Today was different. Today everything felt heavier, sharper, more alive, as if the entire world was holding its breath waiting for whatever would unfold next. Word had spread beyond the hospital walls. The Admiral had regained full consciousness, the investigation was escalating, and the Navy had dispatched a formal review team to observe staff behavior, protocols, and chain of command failures. As Alina walked through the corridor, she felt the strange mix of awe and unease from everyone around her. Nurses parted like a wave, orderlies straightened themselves instantly, and doctors nodded to her with unusual respect. It was as if overnight she had transformed from invisible to indispensable. But she wasn't interested in fame, she only wanted to do her job. Still, the tension built like pressure in a sealed room, especially among the bullies who had harassed her for months: Brenda, Kara, and Janice, now visibly cracking under the weight of their own fear. Their eyes followed her every step, guilt spilling across their faces, knowing the inquiry could expose not just negligence, but cruelty, sabotage, and deliberate attempts to belittle a rookie who simply wanted to serve. When Alina entered the Admiral's suite, she found him sitting upright, studying classified documents, his posture steady, his gaze sharp. He was a man recovering, but no one could mistake the storm brewing in him. "Good morning, Nurse Rahman," he said with a slow, respectful nod, the kind only a commander gives to someone he views as an equal. "The board arrives in 30 minutes. I'd like you present." The words hit her like a shockwave. Present? Rookie nurses weren't even allowed near review boards, let alone sit in the room. "Sir, are you sure?" she whispered. "Absolutely," he replied. "You saved my life, not just physically, but morally. A soldier fights on the battlefield, but you fought in a place far more dangerous. You fought against fear." His praise filled her with a strange mixture of pride and disbelief, but before she could respond, the door burst open and Brenda staggered in, tears streaking her face, hands trembling. "Admiral, please," she cried. We were wrong. I was wrong. I thought I was tough because I'd been here a long time but I wasn't leading, I was bullying. And now the board, they're going to destroy our careers. The Admiral's jaw tightened. Your careers could have destroyed me, he said softly, which somehow cut deeper than shouting. Brenda fell to her knees, sobbing, practically begging for mercy, and the scene drew a small crowd at the doorway. Kara and Janice stepped inside slowly, faces pale, clutching files like shields, finally understanding the gravity of what they had done not just to Alina, but to every rookie who had ever feared speaking up. The Admiral turned to Alina. What should be done, he asked. The entire room froze. The bullies looked at her with red, swollen eyes, their voices cracking as they whispered, "Please, Alina, don't let them end us." Alina took a long breath, her heart pounding. She could have chosen revenge, humiliation, justice soaked in bitterness. But she remembered something her late mother always said: strength is not measured by how hard you strike, but by how gently you hold power when the world hands it to you. She stepped forward, voice soft but unwavering. They should face accountability, but not destruction, she said. Let them stay, under supervision, retrained, re-evaluated. Not to punish them, but to make sure they never treat another nurse the way they treated me. The Admiral studied her for a long moment before nodding. Wise. Compassionate. And exactly why you will rise far in this profession. He turned to the bullies. You will undergo 6 months of remediation. Every report goes directly to my office. Consider this your final chance. Relief crashed over their faces like a tidal wave, tears flowed freely, gratitude replacing arrogance. But the moment wasn't over. The review board entered a line of sharply dressed naval officials carrying tablets and cold expressions. They questioned everything: the protocol delays, the chain of command failures, the hesitation from senior staff, and most importantly, the exact sequence of actions that saved the Admiral's life. Alina spoke with clarity, detail, and humility, and every answer drew nods of approval. When the board finally concluded, the chief inspector stood before her and said, "The Navy commends your courage, Nurse Rahman. The Admiral himself has requested your assignment to the Naval Medical Leadership Program." Gasps echoed through the corridor. That program was reserved for the best of the best, those destined for leadership roles and high-level missions. When the board left, the Admiral smiled. You see, Nurse Rahman, sometimes life waits for the perfect moment to reveal your purpose. As she exited the suite, the entire ward of doctors, nurses, orderlies stood in silent recognition, their respect so profound it felt unreal. The bullies stepped forward.